Well, well, well. It's Wish a Motherfucker Would Wednesday, baby, but unfortunately, a motherfucker has not. So we're gonna have to backtrack a little bit and just pretend like it's Take a Bitch to School Tuesday because we need to take a certain bitch to school today. Now, this video is gonna run kind of long, but it's gonna be full of facts, honey. You can bet your ass on that. The bitch that we are taking to school today would be RFK Jr., that is, Smack Daddy, that reanimated corpse. You see, yesterday, Smack Daddy Jr. got up there behind a microphone and said all kind of silly ass shit. Yes, baby. He went on and on about how when he was growing up, he never seen anybody with lupus. When he was growing up, he never seen anybody with autism. When he was, now I'm just quoting him. He said when he was growing up now, when he was growing up, he didn't know anybody with RA. When he was growing up, nobody had food allergies. He said all of this to make you believe that all of these things, from autoimmune diseases and autism too, food allergies, all of it, did not even exist in his lifetime. That this is a newfangled problem that is just growing in numbers, and it must be because of vaccines or food. Now, while I will agree about food products here in America not being safe, we eat things here that they are not even allowed to touch in other countries because they are filled with toxic chemicals. On that, we agree. Where we do not agree is the fact that you seem to think that this is a new fucking thing. Considering the fact that Democrats and liberals and progressives have been fighting to have food dyes taken out of our food and processed chemicals taken out of our food for quite some time, only to be shot down every time that they came up in Congress by what? Capitalist Republicans who put profits over people. So what you're trying to do, we've been trying to do for quite some time. You can't just get up there and think that you're winning the damn day, by the way. But if you can get it done, hun, I'm all for it. But let's get back to the things he said about growing up and never knowing anybody with autism. I guess he forgot about his cousin. But anyway, he says that autism is fangled and new, and we're just discovering about it that it didn't exist before. But I guess he doesn't know who Hans Asperger's is. Yes, that's right, Hans Asperger. Maybe you recognize the Asperger part of his name. That might be why we named that specific condition Asperger's. Well, he was around in the 1920s. Yes. He started studying it then. You know, way back then, they called it idiot savant syndrome. Yes. You know, like when a child couldn't put their shoes on, but they could sit in front of a piano and just play out an entire symphony, never having been sat in front of a piano before. You know, savantism. But we're severely lacking in another area. If you think back in history, you will become aware of how many savants were actually out there. People with autism. That was in the 1920s. But it just so happens that in the 1700s and in the 1800s, we have plenty of written accounts about autism. The term autism was actually coined in 1911. And in 1943, identifying children through a group of studies coined the term early infantile autism. That was in 43. We recognize that in small children. Now let's talk about lupus, because he said that that is fun-fangled and new. It just so happens, honey, that the first depictions of lupus were in 1500 BC. That's right. The ancient Egyptians have several drawings and artworks that depict the symptoms of lupus. The ancient Egyptians, baby. And that's not all. Symbols reappeared again and more documentation began in 1850. A coined term came about, lupus intermediaris. Skin lupus. Autoimmune attacks on the skin was identified and the term was coined. 1850. In the early 19th century, Germans stepped on in and identified it again. In 1948, an American pathologist, Malcolm Hardgrave, discovered the LE cell, a diagnostic marker for lupus. By 1948, lupus was being found so prevalent in society that they had actually identified the genetic marker for that. There are diseases going on today, right now, that we don't know the genetic marker for. But in 1948, we knew the one for lupus. Where were you? I guess not refreshed and reading up on the history of the things that you get up there and spout about. In 1904, Paul Aldrich described the idea of the immune system attacking itself. That was in 1904 we started to realize about autoimmune disease, what exactly was going on with the arthritis and the lupus and the skin things. That it was actually, we started forming ideas that it was our own immune system that was causing this. By the 30s and the 40s, studies began to identify antibodies through the concept of the immune system attacking itself. By the 50s, full acceptance across the medical field came about that this was a real thing. People's immune systems were attacking themselves, that autoimmune diseases existed, and people were being diagnosed. By the 60s, it was prevalent in books. By the 60s. Now let's talk about food allergies. In 1912, a scientist discovered that people were allergic to eggs. Eggs. And he says we didn't have food allergies till recently. I'll take you back even further than that. Facts will always win the day. The Food Factor was a book that was written in 1905 describing how some people are allergic to foods and the things that they should stay away with. But we can go even further back than 1905. In ancient Greek Roman history, it is very well documented about food allergies. Hell, in 2735 BC, the Chinese Shang and Haidong dynasties actually outlawed foods for certain individuals because of food allergies. Laws were actually passed for certain individuals back in BC times in China because of the recognition and the diagnosis of food allergies. Hell, Hippocrates, do you know who that is? Romans and Greeks, baby. Modern medicine for back then. In 460 to 377 BC, it was highly recorded through Greek and Roman history about food allergies. We've known about food allergies longer than we've known about Jesus. It's nothing new. Nothing new at all. Before you start to convince people that everything that is wrong with the world today just so happens to be going on right now, you leave out the part where these things have been around forever. And what we should really be focusing on is the fact that, profits over people has been the problem for quite some time. Quite some time. He thinks he's doing all of us some great service by taking dyes out of food. It just so happens that Democratic and liberal and progressive leaders have been trying to get dyes out of our food since the 80s and the 90s. Hell, I knew in the early 90s about how red dye affected children who just so happened to be diagnosed with ADHD because of my brother, and doing research because medicine didn't work for him, so we had to find a better way. The early 90s. And courts were petitioned, bills were drawn up. We fought tooth and nail to get synthetic things out of our food. The push for more organic, natural products. But we were laughed at by Republicans and pushed away because, once again, profits over people. And MAGA sits back and laughs at us because we like our all-natural organic products as they shove hot dogs and donuts and red popsicles down their children's throat. And now you want to act like you have stepped up to the plate to do something that we've been trying to do. Shame on you.